My name's Leland Ramias. I'm the founder and CEO of VroomBrick. At VroomBrick, we use technology to make the home buying and selling process more affordable. So I was a surface warfare officer commissioned out of Virginia Tech back in 2017, and my daily life was running a division on a ship. So that was part of my role. Secondarily, I was a watch stander, standing a watch on the ship. And then, I was also trying to get qualified to earn my surface warfare pin. After that, I became a realtor and worked at a brokerage where I was able to help a lot of military buyers and sellers buy or sell homes. Time management skills, leadership, transparency in leadership. I try to carry that forward as CEO of VroomBrick. The way I look at things is that I always want my input to be proportional to whatever output I'm doing. So if I put in X amount of hours, am I gonna get the return from doing that? Pre-entrepreneurship in my previous career, it was sort of just no matter what the level of work was, you would get the same output, monetarily at least. Post-entrepreneurship, I learned a lot about leverage and leveraging your time to be able to make more money with the time that you have. So I guess the perspective shift changed when I started owning my own business because I started seeing results based off of how much time I was putting into it. I was hanging out with one of my friends on my ship. We were both junior officers, and I had went over to his house one weekend, and I noticed that he had two roommates, and he said that his roommate owned the home. And so I started talking to him, and I also saw that he was a realtor, started diving into it a little bit more, and he mentioned how his plan was to kind of rinse and repeat on this strategy that he was using. He called it house hacking. And so I saw that and started thinking to myself, anyone with the VA loan, which is a zero down loan that you get as a benefit for serving in the military, anyone with that VA loan could do what he was doing, hypothetically. So I saw that, and I thought it was a path towards passive income. And that's what really made me take action on that. Yeah, so military service to entrepreneurship started with my realization of passive income. And, that word's thrown around a lot nowadays. And people think of it as okay, I'm just gonna make money in my sleep. But that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is that passive income is passive. I learned that, not necessarily the hard way, but I learned that throughout my journey. I was fortunate enough to be able to use the VA loan to buy my first property at a young age when I first commissioned. And I started seeing kind of how that was a scalable and repeatable process. So what I would do is, buy a house, live in it for a year. I would get roommates, and then after a year, fully move out, rent out the house, do the process, and repeat. And so that's where I started seeing okay, there is a way to make money outside of what was traditionally thought of as the one path for me, which was the Navy. My first house I bought with a realtor, I went through my bank, and they actually assigned me a realtor. And, I didn't know anything about the real estate process, so I thought, that was the only way you could go about doing things. Second house, I actually did not use a realtor. I went directly to the listing agent, and I said, hey, since I don't have a realtor, can I get a closing cost credit, or can we come down on price? And so what ended up happening was on paper, he represented me and the seller, and we were able to cut out the price by about $10,000. I started thinking all these things can be automated. and either automated or outsourced for a lot cheaper than what the industry standard is. It's not necessarily a frustration with the industry, but a way of doing it better. And that's what VroomBrick is really rooted in is, how do we make the system better? How do we empower buyers and sellers to buy or sell real estate on their own, as I did in that second transaction?
My name is Brian Dickerson. I'm currently a major in the United States Army. I'm an infantry officer assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. My first home selling experience in Clarksville, how much money I was leaving on the table that was going to an agent fee when, in reality, I did not think that the work that they were doing for me to sell the home or even to market the home was worth what they were putting in, in the brokerages, companies' checkbook or in their bank as well as the agent's bank. So very frustrated about that, and which made working with Leland all the more and VroomBrick all the more attractive to me.
My name is Justin Richardson, head of operations. So I oversee all of the messages coming in. I get to talk to all of the users that come on. I am basically the catalyst of real estate technology. What drew me into real estate was the fact that I was a bartender before, and when COVID hit, I got a little nervous because everything shut down, and I was younger, so I knew I needed a second outlet anyway, and my friend was doing real estate at the time. He was a realtor, so I wanted to take that next step and work my way out of bartending, and so I became a realtor. I was at a brokerage for a couple of years, and 2-3 years, and that's where Leland and I met, and we had this idea to create this because we noticed a lot of discrepancies in the process. Yeah, I've always been technologically savvy, but creating this really gave me an outlet to spread those wings and help people simultaneously.
Hampton Roads in general is a hub of military, whether it's the largest Navy base in the world or the surrounding 6 to 7 bases in the area. We have a lot of military service members, and then we also have a lot of people retire and join the area. VroomBrick is all about helping military buyers and sellers, and we couldn't have picked a more perfect location for it, with Hampton being kind of that central hub on the peninsula. We also get to be around other innovative companies in the reactor accelerator that we are in. And so it allows us to be around like-minded individuals and allows us to lean on each other when we need to. And the mentorship provided by Reactor has been able to get us to the level we're at. So I would say biggest challenge transitioning into real estate is, it's now a full 180 shift of waking up and getting paid by the Navy to having to put in the work to be a 1099 contractor. I understood early on the effort that I put in would be proportional to my output. So, I followed all the rules and the guidelines for being successful in real estate at my brokerage. But as I transitioned from real estate agent to startup founder, trying to make this process more efficient, that's probably where we're encountering a little more challenges. And it's because there is a lot of resistance to change in the system. There are good realtors out there doing great things. It's been done across multiple industries, and technology comes into the space and is able to empower consumers. And at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do with VroomBrick. Yeah, I would say that's something that I grapple with from time to time. It's it's kind of just like falling back into that comfort zone. It's more about like the ability to be waking up every day and to be excited about what I'm doing. Like I get a lot more satisfaction from that than anything monetarily. And I know as a byproduct, if we can shift the industry towards something better, then monetarily everything will be fine. But in a sense, there is self-doubt every day in some ways because we're going through uncharted territory. There's doubters, but the thing that is most rewarding is being able to wake up every day and say, I'm excited about trying to make good change in the world. And it's something impactful and it's something that helps home buyers and sellers. And there's nothing like being able to say, hey, instead of having to pay money at the closing table, here's a check that you get back at the closing table. It's a scenario where that uncharted territory allows us to have that creative freedom to be able to figure out a better way to do things, because real estate has been this way for about 100 years, since the inception of the National Association of Realtors. And, changing it is a challenge, but it's rewarding every day.
My name is Adam Becerra, and I'm the Chief Experience Officer and co-founder of VroomBrick. I don't have a background in real estate. I mostly have a background in technology and kind of bridging the gap between people that know technology and people that don't really vibe with technology. The most exciting experience that I had was working at a previous startup called Ario. So I was in grad school at the time. I happened to be in the same space as where the startup was building, in this co-working space through ODU. And I joined this startup and I went on this adventure of a lifetime for that point in my life. And I left the grad school, I kind of dropped everything and just joined that. And we were fundraising, we were building the product, hiring, scaling the team. And it was like a total up and down part of my life. And when that ended, I went to do other things. And when the opportunity to join another startup came into my lap, I was like, oh, I'm ready for this. I know where this can go, and I'm ready to get on this ride again. I ended up getting to know Leland better later through my brother, when Leland and my brother worked at the same brokerage, and I had a background in tech startups, and my brother reached out and he was like, hey, Leland's building this thing, I think you should really talk to him. And that's how Leland and I's professional and adult relationship developed from meeting as kids.
So first connected with Leland, he was a friend of a friend, and he came into the office and actually had a flat tire. Had a flat tire, and he had a spare plug-in in his car. He had one for himself and he had an extra one for me. So he helped me pump my tire up, and luckily it just needed a pump. It was just low on air. Helped me pump my tire up and gave me the actual air pump so it wouldn't happen again. Didn't ask anything for it. And I think right then I knew that he was the kind of person I wanted to surround myself with. And after that, we just became good friends. Yeah, easy to start a business with someone like that.
We started seeing real momentum when the referrals started coming in. It was no longer just users that we had got from inbound or outbound. It was literally users who had 5-star experiences talking about it to other people. And so that's when we kind of realized okay, people are really enjoying this to the point where they're sharing it with other people. And I think that's sort of where the aha moment of just being able to give these users a great experience just becomes a compounding effect. Those are the people that you want to listen to most in terms of feedback, how we improve the product, and they're going to tell people about it if they enjoy it. So we might as well be building something for that specific subset of people.
So you're kind of being dumped into this, industry where there's these experts and they are kind of the gatekeepers of the knowledge of how things go. And you kind of have to just trust them that they are going to be working in your best interest. And you're going into that with the deficit of not having the knowledge or experience to back up your choices and decisions. So something that I've learned is one of the biggest pain points is customers just don't know what to do or where to go or what they're supposed to be doing, and they are very vulnerable in that they have to rely on these existing industry players. And what we try to do at VroomBrick is democratize that process, shed light on it, increase transparency so that they can enter with confidence and understand exactly what's going on, who's doing what, who the key players are, and where they fit into that. The main advantage of VroomBrick, I would say, is the transparency. To have this step-by-step dashboard where you can see everything that you need to do and be notified as some action required event arrives and be able to quickly take action on that and go about your day is super empowering. In the current, status quo, that is all happening through an agent. So you're kind of interfacing back and forth with this person, and maybe you have emails or texts going through or calls and whatever you remember from those. But with the dashboard, you have this history of everything that you've done. If you do need to reach out to anyone, you're connected with the relevant stakeholders, like your lender or a closing attorney for signing these documents. But you get to check in at any point in time on your own and view the information that you already know and have collected and see the roadmap ahead of what is next. So I'd say that's one of the biggest advantages of the platform and how we help buyers and sellers, because they get to take control of their own real estate journey.
Again, it comes down to the trade-off. I could have either a very easy process in which someone's doing all the work for me, or but I'm also giving them thousands and tens of thousands of dollars in the process, or I could do the work to figure out how to sell a home by myself, leaving a little bit of money on the table for the VroomBrick team for use of the platform, but also with access to their knowledge, their experience with selling homes, not only in the market, but just navigating the titling process, everything that goes into the home sale. I had access to that treasure trove of knowledge and they served in many ways almost as like a mentor and a teacher to me. So now if I wanted to sell a home, I certainly would be able to do so. And I would absolutely want to use VroomBrick again, because it's just having that reassurance of the experience that comes and the ease of access to that platform that I really liked and would want to come back to if I was to sell a home again.
When I was bartending, I didn't know anything about owning a house, how it would be better than renting. That knowledge isn't something that's given to us after high school or in college, anything like that. We have to go and learn that. That's something that I really wanted to change, because after I realized the benefits, something I think that everyone should know about. They don't necessarily have to pursue it, but it would be good to at least know how it could benefit you. Just to see the happiness on their face and realize that they're doing it basically, with the platform's help, but they're empowered to do it without necessarily needing that traditional guidance.
Before using VroomBrick, the home buying and selling process was almost a black box, in that I did not know what occurred in that process. I knew that money went in and out of the box, and at the end of the day, I would either have a home or I would have sold a home. But I did not understand what was within that process. Using VroomBrick gave me access to all the steps. It gave me access to the experience of the VroomBrick team when I had questions. It empowered me and gave me the decision-making authority and the ability to make decisions that were ultimately going to impact how much I was going to take away from a home sale. Or if I was buying a property, it would give me the decision-making ability to be able to make that purchase feeling as if I had gotten a good deal, and that I was receiving a fair value for the money that was putting into a property.
I think a lot of participating in the entrepreneurial support organizations is determining whether you have a viable business model in the first place. So we went through 757 Startup Studios. We went through ICAP, which is a commercialization assistance program out of George Mason. We went through a William and Mary led incubator. And so it really helped us kind of formulate the business model and kind of get down the foundation for things to where we haven't had to pivot much or change things because that was done early on. And just very thankful for those organizations. I think the reality is mentorship has got us to where we are today. And you just have to seek out these organizations because people do want to help. So Reactor, for instance, we were fortunate enough to come across them at a Virginia Peninsula of Commerce event. And, I met James and Tim there and immediately was sort of embraced with, hey, we have an accelerator program that helps out entrepreneurs. And why don't you apply for Reactor? And so, it's helped us get connections, and it's helped open up doors that would otherwise have either not opened up at all or opened up a lot slower had we not met those types of mentors. Yeah, so VIPC is the Virginia Innovation Partnership Corporation. They offer a commercialization grant. So once you've proved out your product, you can, the proof of concept for your product, you can go through an application process with them where they'll put you through the due diligence period of talking to your customers, talking to stakeholders, talking to your mentors, talking to employees. And so they're looking for companies that are innovative in Virginia. And what it does is allow you to take what you've been working on and take it to the next level because of that funding assistance. Another thing behind the doors of opportunity, and that's Lighthouse Labs. So Lighthouse Labs has been fantastic. It's an accelerator program, one of the top accelerators in Virginia. And what that really does is, it's in its name. It helps accelerate your opportunities for mentors, capital, and continuing to prove out your business model. So being up in Richmond for the accelerator really helped us get some hands-on experience. It allowed us to be around other founders who are like-minded in the sense of trying to build something from nothing. A lot of them are at different stages throughout the process. Some are in the idea stage all the way up until a lot of traction. And so I think the biggest misconception of entrepreneurship is that, you get to make your own hours, control your time a little bit more. And, the reason being is nothing gets done, the buck stops with you as an entrepreneur. You have to be the one to make things happen. And a lot of times you're just bringing things into reality that don't exist yet. And so sometimes people will say to me like, oh, why can't you hang out this weekend? Don't you set your own hours? And that's kind of like the running joke of being an entrepreneur is that you are your own boss, but at the same time, because you're your own boss, you don't have the exact freedoms that you think looking at it from the outside.
Leland is really the thing that keeps us going. His just perseverance, his unwilling diversion of the goal and the game plan makes it easy for us to stay on track. So like, it's work at the end of the day. It doesn't feel like it here, but it is work. And yesterday I came in and Leland was just so excited to work, and it got me excited too. And yeah, it turned out to be a great day. So not necessarily a mentor or a lesson, but I think every day, is a test. And yeah, it's a choice at the end of the day, whether you want to show up or not. And I like showing up for people and helping people, so it makes it easy. What is the toughest decision I've had to make as a co-founder? I think it's to become a co-founder. To become a co-founder, is a level of responsibility that I wasn't sure I would be prepared for. But Leland believed in the team that he built, and I believe in myself wholeheartedly. So if he thinks I can do it, I know I can.
That's been a fun challenge for me, is navigating how can we modify the product as quickly as possible to be able to meet their needs in a way that is scalable for us. But it can be challenging when users do approach the platform in a way that you didn't design it, and really all we can do is adapt in real time and figure out like, okay, what's the biggest priority? Like, how can we make the biggest impact with the least amount of time and energy right now? I think one of my main advantages as a technical professional is being like very obsessed with trying to make it as easy to use as possible for whoever's hands this is ending up in. I really like something that works efficiently and helps me understand, it's intuitive. How can I bridge that gap between someone that really has an appreciation for when an experience works really well and make that experience possible for someone that doesn't necessarily maybe know what they're looking for, but they know when something works?
Empowerment and transparency come to mind when I think of the platform. And what is great is about VroomBrick and Leland, his vision, as well as the team's vision there, is that I know that they've taken the platform that I use, that I found transparent and again, easy to use. And I know that they've iterated on it since. They've done small experiences and they've improved the user experience. So I have no doubt that the platform that they have today would look probably similar to what I use, but in all likelihood, much better than even a year ago.
Yeah, we're gritty. So we want to make sure things are done right and well, for that matter. So we did our research. We've had our discussions. We lawyered up and made sure that we were doing the right things, because you've always been able to buy or sell a home without a realtor. So we're basically, finding out a way to get this general information out to the community.
I really see VroomBrick restoring the American dream. And, I don't mean that in like some lofty way. The reason my grandpa came to America from the Philippines was to have a better life and to follow the American dream, eventually own a house, and that's a big part of what the American dream is. And, nowadays people feel very hopeless when it comes to being able to ever afford a home. And so when you really look into it and try to pick apart how many hands are in the pot on this buying and selling process and how we can make it more efficient, that's where VroomBrick comes in and allows people to restore that faith in a system that people will make a lot of sacrifice to be a part of.
That's my vision, to have a 18-year-old, 21-year-old at a high school, college, learn about VroomBrick and already know that homeownership is better than renting and that we can make it more affordable for them. That's the overall vision. That's what excites me the most, is knowing that these younger people will know what I wish I would have back then.
What I liked about the platform itself was the user interface. And from the user interface, when I logged into my account, I had a dashboard, and it very succinctly laid out the tasks that I had to complete, what I had done thus far. And what was great is, Leland and the VroomBrick team was there to support me if, as I was checking off each of those checklist items, there was anything that frustrated me or was confusing, particularly since it was the first time taking on the process myself. I had both the platform there as well as access to the VroomBrick team to help me along the process. And it took what I thought was a very intimidating process and made it very achievable and something that I could do even while simultaneously trying to raise a family and go to school at the same time and transition into my next job.
At this point in time, whoever has more knowledge has more power. But if we can flatten that and allow more people to be empowered to do more, then tweak the system so that people are incentivized to work in the best interests of people that don't know as much as them, then that would be really cool.
So what is next for VroomBrick? We really want to solidify our foothold here in Virginia and start expanding beyond to other states. We already have a small foothold in North Carolina and Maryland, but we would like to start scaling to these other states to bring our solution to the masses. And it starts here with Virginia. We talked about how Hampton is great for what we're building because we are helping military buyers and sellers. And in the Hampton Roads area, it's such a high concentration of them. And so the next step in the plan is to, it's very data driven, but we're going to be expanding to the states that have the highest VA loan volume. Has becoming a startup founder changed me as a person? This is a tough one. I think I try to be more intentional with my time. It's more about being intentional with my time outside of the startup, because it does consume like 95% of my awake time. Like it even consumes part of my sleep time as well. Like I'm dreaming about this every day. So I'd say I try to be intentional with that 5% that I'm not working on the startup, and just making sure I'm, one, mentally okay, and then two, spending time with my family. Couldn't do it without their support, but at the same time, I think about time in a very different way now.
I would say sacrifice. You're gonna need to sacrifice your time. Probably you're gonna need to sacrifice the person that you were before, so you can grow into the person that you're gonna need to be to make to realize your dreams and make them come true. It's not gonna be easy, and it's not always gonna go your way. But as long as you just don't quit and you just keep finding new outlets, it will be possible. Just keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, what advice would I give to other veterans, other entrepreneurs aspiring to do their own thing? I would say, do it. Build your company and have a bias towards action. Take those steps and that leap of faith, because it's the most rewarding thing that you'll ever do. And you're not going to look back on it, even if you fail, and say, I regret giving it my all and trying to change the world through business. Because that's what you're really trying to do, is find a problem and change the world with a unique take on a solution for it. And I would say do it here in Hampton Roads, because there's a lot of markets out there that claim to be startup friendly, but they're oversaturated at this point. I wouldn't go as far to say that they're washed up, but in Hampton Roads, you're kind of on the incline of the roller coaster here, or the start of the overall journey of entrepreneurship. And if you can do it here and do it big, the return's going to be a lot bigger than doing it somewhere else.